Welcome to a special Arbitrage.Run show without the main man, Donkey Teeth, who's gone for a few weeks. I think most of you know me. I've been on a show before. I'm Keith from Crimson Racing. With me as a guest co-host, we have Souls Vanish from Two Fools. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, doing very well. Yeah, it is a little weird not to. I tried to get an Oregon hat, and I was gonna try to find a wig for some long hair, but it didn't work out. It's a little donkey.
Big shoes to fill, but we'll handle it. Of course, we have Kevin, the main man, the guy who we wish would go on a month-long ZED retreat. How you doing?
Never. How's it going, guys? Appreciate you guys filling in for Donkey.
Absolutely.
Keith, we gotta change your tag. I know you've got some nicknames brewing, so we're torn between what was it, Keith Teeth and Donkey
you know
Keith?
what? I should have done that. Yeah.
I like
next show. Donkey Keith. Yeah, we'll do that. All right, next show will be Donkey Keith.
Both those go well. Keith Teeth.
Keith Teeth is a mouthful. I kind of like, I don't know, it's a tongue twister. Donkey Keith is better.
Yeah, Donkey Keith is good. Well, Donkey picked a bad time to be gone because there's going to be a lot of good stuff to talk about these next few weeks. And of course, this week we're recording this on Thursday, but maybe 2 days ago, we got the news they'd be basically altering about 7,500 horses, kind of upgrading their breed types. And that was just completed overnight. Last night, we have the full list of the horses and we got a lot to talk about. So maybe before we even go into anything, like Souls, any like high level takeaways from you as you kind of look through the horses you had that were upgraded or what you've seen on Twitter so far? I know it's only been a few hours here, but
I mean, I think that it's all net positive, especially compared to what we knew like a week ago, right? Like a week ago, we thought forever Pacers were going to be capped at 300, right? And part of that announcement was that, temporarily they will be, but in the future, there's going to be something in place for that. So I think that alone is like a huge announcement for anybody who breeds the lower kind of bloodlines. But and I think it's net positive for anybody who had a horse that got moved up. Like, not only do you get more breeds, you're going to be in the higher incentive, things like that, especially without the conditionals. Like, I think it's net positive.
Yeah, Kevin, you agree with that?
Yeah, I think the one thing people need to keep in mind is there's two ways it could go. One, you could be mad because you're not going to be able to get to the cap of your class as quickly. But if they're truly incentivizing the higher classes being better, that's a good thing, right? Like, if there's limits to what you can do in class 6 versus class 3 or 2, that could be huge to get the upgrade. And then, you got a little room to grind, but that's half the fun of a game. And then, like Soul said, with the breeds, I mean, going from a pacer who has 4 breeds, and now maybe you're an exclusive and you have 24. I mean, it's massive.
It's insane. Yeah, no, I totally agree. That's by far the biggest improvement without knowing how 2.0 will play out just yet. But obviously, it sounds like being in higher classes will be beneficial, just given what the team has said. We'll see. But the breeding aspect, if your horse is, clearly it's a good horse to be upgraded, right? Like, we know now using the extreme, I think there were 100 horses that moved from pacer to exclusive. Like, we know those are good horses. Like, you're not moving up because, remember, to be moved up to exclusive, it means, I'm always forgetting the numbers, but you're above 400, right, as a starting point, or above 500, right? So you're already even just taking exclusives, you're already in the top 20% of exclusives, right? And you were a pacer before, so that breeding change of getting 20 more breeds. I mean, if that's a mare, you now have over a year, almost 2 years of extra breeds. Like, that's insane. So I think people need to realize, like, the ones that are moving from pacer to cross, maybe there's not much of a difference, a little bit of leveling up, but that breeding for those that jumped up to exclusive is going to be pretty huge.
Yeah, I know personally, like, we were happy to see any horse upgraded. Like, there was never a time where I was like, crap, that one got upgraded to exclusive. I had hoped it stayed at a cross. And I think it's just like a mental shift we're going to have based off how they set up this new system, because it's almost solely conditional right now with aids being so difficult. But if they're getting rid of cross-only races, then it doesn't matter if I have the best cross. I want to be able to play at the highest class to get into those tournaments, which are more incentivized.
Yeah.
Right. And go ahead, Souls.
And the mare part, like, if you have a mare that got exclusive, that's just absolutely massive, because exclusives right now is the only ones that can reach class 1. And to have a mare at exclusive, like now you can kind of just keep that line going, that one extra generation, and possibly indefinitely.
Right.
I think that's those are the biggest, by far biggest winners.
I hadn't even thought of that, right? Because if you have a mare exclusive, you can continually breed with Genesis and hold that line.
Especially now, because it'll be like these exclusives will be Evo 6, and from what it sounds like, that's going to be key in unlocking like an Evo 6 breed of an exclusive as well, right? Like an Evo 5 exclusive is not going to breed as well, so you have that avenue to Evo 6 with the offspring potentially as well.
Right, and I think that's the biggest unknown we don't have. We know the team has alluded to some sort of change when 2.0 drops, but I think that's the part that got people up in arms, is like, okay, the breeding algorithm, quote unquote, has changed, which it hasn't, but they've tried to fit it into what these Evo caps are giving us in 2.0. So I'm curious to see what comes next with, people are speculating, oh, you can breed up in breed type, like we'll see. But I think for now, my breeding strategy, I kind of put on Twitter. I'm curious to hear both of your thoughts before we jump into some of these horses here. Is I'm not super keen to breed below exclusive right now, just given some of the language around how they are capping some of these things. I don't know if I'm reading too much into it. You guys tell me your thoughts, but my plan is I think you're safe breeding anything legendary and anything exclusive, because you can hit that level that is basically uncapping you from what the offspring can be. But once you start getting below exclusive, it does sound like you might hit some caps based on the parents you're using. So Souls, are you kind of reading that the same way for now until we hear more?
Yeah, 100%. If it's not said directly, like it was heavily implied, I'm pretty sure it was pretty like said directly that those lower lines right now are capped on. You won't be able to produce those outliers like now where you bred a pacer that's an exclusive. That's going to be capped until the next phase where they put in something to handle those type of horses.
And I think that's important. Souls, maybe just like take a minute and explain what that means, because it doesn't mean you can't make good horse, but explain what you said about those outliers, because that's the only part that has changed, which I think the three of us were always breeding for that outlier. Yeah. We also are probably more lucky than most to have horses that can produce those outliers, right? But that doesn't mean every stable necessarily needs to take what we're saying as gospel with not breeding lower, because you can still breed a good horse. It's just going to probably most likely be worse than the two parents you put in there, especially if one of them is really good. You're going to have a pretty material drop.
Yeah, that's true, right? So, yeah, I wouldn't say right that to not breed them at all, but maybe pull back a little bit on putting the pacers into the Z1s like we were all, like a lot of us are doing.
Which is like that's how it should be, though, right? That's a better system to align the cost and the type of breed. Because the reason people were doing the Z1 and willing to waste a Z1 on a 268 was because the incentive structure was so misaligned, where you have 268 tournaments paying out the same as a Z1 whatever tournament. So getting those better aligned, you're going to see more like true behavior. So I think it will be a healthier ecosystem with that.
Totally agree. Should we start looking at some of these horses? Kevin, I know you had a couple here you wanted to highlight. Let me
I think it's interesting, and I know like a few people have started digging into like who moved, who didn't move, and trying to reverse engineer we don't know the ratings yet, but we do know if it went to exclusive, it's at least 500. So you can kind of back into what matters in terms of creating that rating when you see certain horses getting promoted who you wouldn't have expected, and then maybe some horses who didn't get reclassified who you would have expected based on their win rate. So I know a lot of people have started looking at that. So we wanted to break a few of them down.
Let's Souls, I don't have control here, but my screen is shared if you want to just click it onto the screen here. But let's talk about one. This was no surprise. Kevin, talk about this horse. It's one of your more recent purchases. I don't know if you guys have talked about it on a past episode, but walk us through this one.
I don't think we have. I mean, it's a very recent purchase. I think we got it last week at some point. It was an elite, a really interesting breed where the father, Jumbo Pacer, is a good horse, but it's not nearly as good as, I don't even know how to say this. Bloomel. I've been saying Bloomel. Would you say Bloomel? It depends on culture you want to be.
Yeah.
Bloomel for me, but it's way better than either of its parents. Potentially, it got some of that Jumbo or like Phantom Pacer blood that I think it's pulling from. But I feel pretty confident in saying this is the best 2.0 bred 1600, 1400, 1600 horse in the game. I know like, but Blushing Desert is way up there.
Yep.
I think this one's better. And if you look at the flames, like it's never not flamed at 14 and 16.
Yep.
It's flamed over some of the beasts of the game at that. So a great horse. No surprise here. It got upgraded to exclusive because we don't really know its ceiling yet.
Yeah, no, to your point, I mean, it flamed over quite original. Again, I don't know if that was a one-off, fatigue issue or whatnot, but like the flames here are pretty insane. Phantom Pacer at 1800, several great horses, Ponyfish. I know that's not a huge flamer necessarily, but there's some really good horses in here.
Yeah, and it's super interesting too, because not to make it to like a Blue Mole shill episode, but it has some flames at sprints over good sprinting horses that you wouldn't expect. Like there was a 1200 where it flamed over Common Pound, who is one of the best, at least 1,000-meter flamers in the game. And it's not elite at 1,200, but that's a horse where if it's a light field, it should be flaming at 1,200, and it normally does. And Blue Mole is mostly a mid. So to see it range to the sprint that heavily means it's got some DP and a ton of base ability. So when the ratings come out, I would not be surprised at all to see this way up there in the 500s for that.
Yeah. I mean, these are
flame chart is just really interesting. Like it does have such a wide range, right? Like you don't see it very often.
Yeah. At first, when we bought it, honestly, I thought it was a true 16. Now I think it skews a little more towards the 14, maybe even 12 a little bit. So I've been running it more there. But yeah, it has such good base ability and a touch of variance where it flames over some beasts 1800 and a few at like I wouldn't run much at 2000, but it would hit some at 2000 as well.
Yeah, no, this one's a killer, and like you said, started as elite. Now it's an exclusive. That one was not a surprise at all. I'm gonna actually focus on one of mine that I was looking through. I had a number of horses. I don't know, maybe 50 or so that changed in some respect. One of them is actually for sale. That I haven't raced in a while is this horse called In the Jungle. I bred it many months ago. This is back from July. It seemed like a decent pairing. Got some Kaus blood in the Congo. I think people know that bloodline, but this is by my interpretation, not a good horse. You can see it here. These are mostly free races. There are some paids in there. Clearly it's got, the BA, it's got some, really no DP. But it never finished 11th or 12th. Like this to me is like a BA bred horse. This horse went from, I believe this is wrong. I think it went from elite to exclusive. Let me confirm that here. But this was one that I was pretty shocked to see. Yeah. So this is now an exclusive and it was an elite. So we're talking about Blue Mole on one hand, probably the most obvious upgrade from elite to exclusive we had. This is another one that went from elite to exclusive. So we know it's a 500 at minimum. I'm going to imagine Blue Mole is very different than this one. But like Souls, when you see a horse like this, like what does this tell you about what we can infer into the formula that's deciding these level and XP levels?
Yeah, I mean, this is like what would appear to be like almost pure BA, right? There's some variance, of course, but like it's just like going so hard on the BA. Yep. I mean, probably not as much as Blue Mole because like you can see the difference on like how tight the flame range is, right? But I mean, this gives us a good idea of where BA is going to push horses into that C1, and a horse like this does make me a little worried. Like this is going to be in C1, like. I mean, the 50-50s are going to, be where it tries to make its mark. And if this is level 500 or 510 or whatever, right, towards the bottom, and it just made the cut, you still do have 200 levels of leveling up, to catch up to or 100, right, to catch up to the best horses. I think that does a lot. Think about, how far that pushes that A shape to the left.
Well, I think that's going to be the key, right? We still don't know what the formula will look like for progression. So how does everyone's speculating that BA will be kind of the key contributor to how horses level up, and there won't be much in terms of DP or variance added or moved around for, the horse's characteristics. So, I think at least horses like this give us a sense, like you said, that BA is at least making a heavy impact initially in the rating. So you would imagine maybe that's the way things move up and down. But like you said, if this starts at 501, it's going to be capped at 600. It'll never get to 700, which is where, right? I believe that's correct. Or this can actually get all the way to 700. I think
it can go all the way up.
It can go all the way. So you have 200 points. So maybe you can turn a horse like this. It might take a while, take a lot of grinding, a lot of third, fourth, fifth finishes and a double up or whatnot. But this might be one that would be fun to know you're never going to really lose, right? If you can get decent races to get into, maybe this is a fun one for someone to level up. But I think that's going to be kind of the interesting part of 2.0. Kevin, you have thoughts on this one or any other horses that you saw like this in your stable that moved?
Don't have too many like this, unfortunately.
Yeah. I don't either. I try to get rid of these. It's in Crimson Sales and it's 0.03. And
I'm surprised nobody jumped on that, right? Like
I almost went in and took it off, but
yeah, one of the sharp things to do was kind of while everybody was sleeping is as soon as this came out, especially for unraced, right? You knew if an unraced was supposed to be an elite or below, and all of a sudden you see it popping out as an exclusive, you know that UU is at least a level 500, which means, it's at least going to be this good and probably better. So that was a sharp thing to do, is look at unraced and unnamed that got the upgrade and buy it for the price that probably didn't reflect that.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. This was the one caveat when I saw. So actually, look, you I believe, I don't know if it's still available. You had a few of your UUU horses that were in the Arbitrage UUU sales stable that were upgraded. I think there were 2 or 3 of them, and one was still unpurchased when I checked this morning. But I actually, right before that, had seen this horse, and it was like the one thing telling me, like, okay, like, yes, it went from elite to exclusive, I think was your horse. I'm like, it could be this. So that was the one thing that kept me from pulling the trigger on it, but I almost did. But I do think that is a play. If someone wants to take a gamble, you hope it necessarily isn't exactly like this one, and maybe more like a Blumel or someone else. But I thought that was an interesting case. Let's flip to the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Do you want to pronounce this one for me, Kevin?
Once again, depends on how cultured you want to be. It can be thickanus or thickanus. If you decide.
Tell us about this horse real quick.
Yeah, so this used to be a cross, and I think still is a cross. High Z. Bought this one a while back. I think it won a C1 paid over. Yeah, it won a C1 paid over Ready Set Boom. It didn't flame or anything, but a super high variance, high DP horse. And yeah, let's look at
C1 paid.
Yeah, I think it was a $2. It didn't run many. Maybe it came in second, or was it?
Yeah, there was a second. 2,400.
Did it beat RSB? Something triggered it. Maybe it was a $5 at one.
Not in that one. It could be more. Yeah, let's turn these on. Yeah,
I won a $5. There you go. So that was the one that caught my eye.
Oh yeah, beat RP, Triumph, Flick. Yeah, so not RSB, but other great horses.
Right. So huge win, right? Like a C1 paid win, $5 even. But it was the classic,
by over a second and a half too. So
it was the classic variance run where it just has good DP and a lot of variance and very little base ability. And if you look at the horseshoe, we've tanked it a lot. So that's why it looks more UE than it actually is. But looking at 26 only, it still has a lot of variance for a marathoner with strong DP. Probably the best tanker in the game.
This is insane. Look at that. Look at that. There's one top 7 finish in 120 sprints. That's insane.
I remember when Dan Shan would run those tank tourneys. This would just be the best possible. You could use 1200 too, and it was just amazing. So ton of variance, ton of DP. Really strong natural U there, but a great horse, right? It's winning 29%, and some of those are paid, some are free, but a really good horse. Yet it remained as a cross, which tells you it did not even hit level 400. So it's an extreme example. This would be the type of horse, I think, unless it's already $399 at the cap, that is going to be a nightmare in those top 3s or winner take alls for other class, whatever that is, 4 horses to contend with. So I think if there is an edge or a hole in the formula that they're using for rating, this is a pretty good indicator that they're not weighting variance that heavily. And you obviously wouldn't want to do double ups or anything with that, but winner take alls amongst horses that are also classified as crosses, I don't think you're going to find a better odds horse at 2,600 when this is capped out than another, like any other horse that's a cross.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I think you can even make the case like, yeah, clearly the top end variance is there, but like this horse is still going to do well, and even in double ups. Obviously, the ROI is going to be there more so on a winner take all or whatnot. But like, this is not like it's a massive U here at the extreme distances. So, like you said, assuming this is going to be probably near the top of where crosses start, you know, you're going to be at a pretty heavy advantage, and this horse, in theory, has no way to move up. So this is going to be one of those cases where we'll see what Zed does to react. Is our horses like this just cleaning up at lower levels? But Souls, you're, I think, seeing this for the first time. What are your thoughts? Have you seen other horses like this, or just thoughts on this one not moving up from cross?
Yeah, I mean, this was a surprise not moving up from cross. But I don't think like it's so crazy because again, it's kind of pigeonholed into where it's going to be able to run, right? Like, I don't think you're going to see it running double ups once a bunch of horses get to the same level who are like just pure BA.
That's fair.
Maybe it still could at 26. But I mean, its real money, I think, is going to be, like Kevin said, in those winner take all and top 3 12 horse race.
But I think you're like with pure BA, right? Like Keith showed a pure BA horse who is at least a level 501, and thickiness would kill this horse in anything distance.
Yeah,
right. So like, true. Not to mention like the horses that she's going to be racing against are level 399 and below.
Yeah, so they won't have BA, right? Like
BA 399, it just doesn't exist, or it's horrible.
Yeah.
So is that the key, where that is actually the equalizer, that horses are going to look more like this one, and therefore your win rate might actually be hit by that because you're not competing against any horses that have any meaningful BA? Or you think this one is still likely to rise to the top because it's just probably so much better than the other ones down there?
There's probably a little bit of that. I mean, there's still going to be worse versions of your horse that are going to fall in here.
Right.
But yeah, it's probably true. There's going to be a lot less stable horses that are crosses, which is probably how they want crosses to look.
Yep.
But that could be the key too. Yeah. In this breeding, how do you get a horse with this much distance preference, right, or variance in 2.0 right now? Like, that's going to be it's going to be hard at that level, like at 400 or 399. Like, yeah, this is gonna have a space for a long time.
Yeah, I think that's the other key too, is like clearly we don't know how DP fits into all this. You would imagine, the rankings are for the horse's kind of most preferred distance in theory, because you want to kind of cap them at where they are going to be running the most frequently. That would, if this were a mid and we're talking about a mid variance horse with no DP, I think I would feel a little more understanding that it was capped lower. Once you add in this DP we're seeing here, like, I would imagine we're not going to see many horses look like this that are capped at 300 or whatever it's going to be. Like this should just absolutely crush down there. I'll be curious to see if that doesn't hold.
We'll find out.
One other one I wanted to pull up, because it's actually like, it's not a great comp to this one, but I have a horse called Blushing Copperhead, and it's a massive variance horse that can win in C1. It's a good 2.0 breed. It's got some, this comes from Blushing Dessert line, Copperhead and Ping Pong. But this thing, it's more of a natural U. It's a sprint variance horse, so it's like a 12, 14 horse. This one, and clearly can win at sprints too. Like, but this is as you as it gets. This is not quite the same as like a thick. But this one this one did upgrade from cross. So when we think we had thick at cross, we have this one at cross. This one went cross to elite. So it didn't make the jump all the way to exclusive like we've seen some other horses do. I just want to verify that again. Yes, so this one went to Elite. So thoughts when you guys see this one here? Is it? Well, I'll pull it up on ZSim as well. Maybe we can compare it to Thick, but I'm going to guess it's a little bit higher on kind of like the base speed, and maybe that's what kicked it over the edge. But these are two crosses that you would expect maybe behave somewhat similarly, but they didn't.
Yeah, that's interesting. Let's pull it up and look.
So it's actually showing as higher variance too, with, you know, kind of a little higher overall power, a little bit higher on the speed, but like these numbers are not far off from where Thick was. So I'm curious to see how, and clearly there's some DP here. This one definitely trends more to the mid, but there's some sprint DP here. But this was one I wasn't shocked went up, but when comparing it to Thick, I was a little shocked that they didn't both behave somewhat similarly. So I'm going to guess these are probably pretty close. Maybe this one just made it over the threshold and Thick is just under it, but I don't know. Initial takeaways?
Yeah, I would think they'd move in tandem. I bet one is like 399 and one's like 410.
Right.
But that is interesting because I would think Thick has more DP than this.
Yes.
The base is higher for this one. Variance probably a little higher. But this is another one where, like, if it's a 410 and you're gonna be able to take it all the way up to 499,
this will be a fun one. Yeah,
do crazy things. Plus, you get the fun of leveling it up too.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for variance horses in this kind of new game. I'm excited for all of them, but I do think there's clearly the initial thought that I'm having is variance is going to be pretty fun because they're going to start a little lower. You know, you're going to lose a lot because they're variance sources, but you're going to win a lot too. So like in theory, the ROI might be even better and you're going to have more room to move them up. And they probably, in my opinion, won't move up as quickly because you're going to have so many back end finishes. And I'm guessing the way the XP is going to work, yes, winning will always give you the most, but I'm going to assume second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever, give you way more than, you know, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 12th. So I think it's going to be pretty fun to see these not move up as quickly, but win along the way, the whole way up, because they can still beat. If you start at the bottom of 100 XP band, these type of horses can still beat those horses at the top of the band. So you can win the whole way up, and that's going to be pretty fun.
Right. Yeah, it's doing fine now.
Yeah, and I haven't even been racing it a whole lot, but this can win in C1 paid. It doesn't win often, but it can do it. So
and Zabo, so it should like move up a little faster than the Buterins, right? Like
that's true.
So you'll outpace a little bit, you'll get to the top faster. I mean, this isn't a real interesting one compared to Thick because that BA just must mean really so much. It seems like a very fine line. We don't know, right, how many levels are between there, but I know. And other people were saying variance seems to be weighted the least. I haven't really gone through it to see that yet, but this may, this questions that.
Yeah, this example would almost insinuate that DP is almost weighted less, right? Because like really the key difference between these two is Thick getting most of its ability from its DP, then from variance, then from BA, right? This one is probably variance, BA, DP. Maybe you can move those around a little bit, but it seems like maybe DP, all else equal, is actually not getting quite the same credence as variance.
Unless BA is just so high, which
should be.
I mean, it could be, right? Based on your other one, I also had a pretty A-shape that went from elite to exclusive that was distance, like no variance, pretty much zero. And it, got to C1. So it'd be interesting to see that the exact numbers.
It's going to be crazy to see like all these horses, the different types, once they're fully evolved, like a 700 Ready, Set, Boom versus 700 Festus, right? Like I have no idea what Festus is, but if Festus is like a 480 or something right now, and it can still be an Evo 6, or even if it's like 500, Festus can win as much as Ready, Set, Boom in the hardest fields at like 2,400 in terms of just the win rate. So if Ready, Set, Boom has 100 levels to go up and Festus has 200, the 700 versus 700 is going to be very scary when you get a variance horse leveled up that much. So
well, and that's the key too, because we don't know how they're going to level, right? So if you're layering in BA into Festus, that actually makes it more scary, right? I would think than if you're just layering in more variance into Festus, because you're not actually like you're only increasing those like 3 sigma races on either side. But if you're pumping the BA of these variance horses, like they become the best horses in the game, right? They have to if that's the formula.
Yeah, at least at their with the variants, it's still going to be the, you know, the winner take all type format. Yeah. Like they won't perform in the double ups, but yeah, I mean, it's got to be some mix. But after seeing Thick, I don't know. I'm really excited for Moulah now. Like, is he going to be in a? Is he going to be is he even going to be C1? Like,
that's true. You know? Moulah's going to be a fun one, because if that gives you like some wiggle room, some headroom to go up higher, that's going to be fun, because you already know he can compete and you'll have a ways to go.
That's an interesting point with Moulah, because like Moulah was the best odds horse pre whatever update that was, the algo change, we'll call it. Yeah. And the algo change was really a buff to base ability. I think we can all agree with that.
Yeah.
So now if leveling is going to recognize that it lacks base ability, and that's what's going to juice back in, we might see like a return of the old Moulah if you get it up to 700.
To 700.
That's scary for us.
Here's the other one real quick, and then I think maybe we'll kind of end this. I sold this horse. I believe it's one of the best Genesis Buterins in the game, Cosmic Statesman. It's an absolute monster variance horse across multiple distances, C1 paid winner. Like this variance percentile here is kind of off the charts, close to 50%. This actually compares, if you pull up Vanilla Bean, like this is basically the Genesis version of Vanilla Bean, like pretty close. I sold it a few weeks ago for a good price, but this was one I was actually super excited to go into 2.0 with if I didn't get the offer that I felt was worthy selling. But a horse like this is going to be an even more extreme version. If this is getting penalized because it's just pure variance, like dominant runs in the mid, like if this is starting at 250, like what's this horse going to look like when it gets to 650, right? Like that's going to be, I'm going to be watching this horse closely. I'm probably going to regret at some point that I sold it, because if this could be the most fun one, it's going to crush every horse that's around to start, I would think, in terms of win rate. Again, it's not going to compete in these daily tournaments. And maybe that's the offset Zed's going for, right? Like we're going to give these variance horses more win rate against their competition early on, but they're never going to really win these daily tournaments. So maybe that's what they're going for. But I think this one's going to be super fun to watch.
Yeah. And I thought there was going to be, and it might be in there, but seeing Thick just kind of like really like is a good show under the covers. But I thought that, it would be scaled where if you, as you start getting a ton of variance, right, or a ton of distance preference, it is a bigger boost. But that kind of seems not to be, because Thick is probably one of the, I would say, probably one of the top distance preference, like in terms of how much distance preference it has, needs to be up there, because it doesn't have the BA. It does have variance, but doesn't have the BA, right? So it has to be pretty high to perform that well. And we don't see the kind of crazy jump. So that kind of goes out the window a bit.
Right. Lots to learn, but I think this was exciting. We're going to have a lot of theories jumping around. I know Zedge and ZSim and Dan Shan and all these smart guys are kind of working on it behind the scenes. People seem they've already, say they've already cracked it. We'll see. I think leveling is going to be the key unknown here. Of maybe we understand the starting ranges, but we don't yet understand how these things move. Kevin, do you want to touch on Lucky Maiden results or horses you sold or anything? I know we have a wheel to spin as well to do a giveaway. You can explain that after, but anything in Lucky Maiden to touch on?
No, I mean, a lot of fun as always. Shout out to Lucky Jack for managing that, and Zombie for doing the leaderboard. We had, I think, 12 horses entered. So all in all, we had 0.58 ETH of entry fees. So thinking about our giveaway, we should have 3 in the overall grand final. We've got Wild Grandeur, who's Wildcatter, and Grandeur Plan. Ready Set Plan, also Grandeur Plan. That's actually a combo that won it with 0 chaos. It's Ready Set Supreme and Grandeur Plan. So a former champion bloodline with that. And then I think Saber Power is going to stick in.
Yeah, that's close. Look how close this is here. Yeah.
I know that. Extra. Oh man, that is tight. I think it's clear. There's one that can catch it, but 12th is as good as 11th in that. So you should have a good chance in making a run, which should be good news for people who entered our raffle and bought one of our UUUs. I think 3 of them actually kind of hit the lottery and got one of those horses that was upgraded to exclusive without even knowing it at the time. And then we had that one that somebody got at the end. where they knew it was upgraded. So 4 of those, I think 20 that were purchased got the upgrade. But yeah, we had 19 enter the raffle, and that'll be for a share of 19% of our profits from this. So once again, we had 0.58 of entries. So anything above that, you'll be getting 19% of if you win the wheel. So without further ado, I think you have the wheel up.
I do.
There were a couple stables who bought 2 horses, so you'll get 2 entries in that. I think it was Keenan Brown and Jeff. So those are the 19. If you want to give it a spin, we'll figure out.
Give it a spin.
Yeah. ZHH.
Nice.
Congratulations. Right. And what is this for, Kevin? What are they getting?
They're getting 19% since
so they get the whole thing. Okay, so you're not splitting it. I got it. Yep.
That's awesome. Of our profits, yeah.
Of your profit. That's great.
Yeah.
Congrats, ZHH.
Last time we gave up 13% because we had 13 entries and they won like $400. So it can be material. We had a really good run last time, so hopefully we can replicate that.
Hey, there's no downside.
That's true. Give you something to cheer for on Friday night.
Congrats to ZHH. Any parting comments or things we should touch on before we wrap this week's up?
No, I'm excited for the when the update will happen. I did see in general, Facundo, I think it was sarcastic. Somebody said something about the World Cup, right? Like, and then his one comment was, "Remind me when the stage switches again."
Oh man!
So knowing his sense of humor, right? Like,
interesting.
It could be. Tomorrow. We might want to look at, when that.
We're definitely close. I mean, they wouldn't have done this 7,500 horse upgrade, in my opinion, until that they were very close. Because you don't want to have that much of a lag time with this unknown breeding atmosphere, right? Until we at least get a roadmap for what's coming. So that's interesting. I hadn't seen that comment. I'm pumped.
All right. Yeah, hopefully by the next time we do this episode, we'll be breaking down the new system next week. But yeah, I appreciate you guys joining, filling in for Donkey.
Absolutely.
Souls will work on that nickname for you, but we got Donkey Keith joining.
Donkey Keith coming in next week. Thanks everyone. We'll call it a show, and good luck in 2.0 if it drops before the next time we see you.
Yeah, good luck.
See you guys.
See ya.